started, there wasn't many trees around anywhere, you know, so the stock were pretty bloody hot, bothered. The water is pumped to the tanks. We just had a master on a water scheme, and then gravity fed around the farm. So the water wasn't the problem, it was just the shade. So when we started, obviously, you know, look at the shade now that we've got. When we had a drought, we talk about pruning. Our pruning really comes to when we have a drought. We'll just start cutting them down and feed it to the stock. We're probably a little bit lapsed at times. So actually, we don't have a couple of years without a drought, we don't prune our trees, which is probably not a great thing. So as you can see, it's just the shelter and the shade is thing, and holding the hillside. So that's the things we wanted. If you have a look where we came down through Kumu, and you notice there was a couple of big old willows and poplars all on the ground, on the sides of the hills they'd cut down. Well, that was some of the original planting. We always found they were always too close together, talking to farmers. So instead of putting them in packs of 50, we put them in packs of 25, because Brother and I, he's got a helicopter business. So we could spread them up the hills a bit more and spread the plantings out. So they just weren't so close together. And that seems to work pretty well. We don't think we've been disadvantaged in any way. Hillside's still together. Everything's gone through. Yeah, so that's really variety. That's willows. Do you want that one variety?
Oh, we had a line of willows at the gully there.
Yeah, the gully goes up and around.
So we talked about higher genetic mix, and I think in those days we had Tongariro, Muteri, 693, 3032, and a Goldenwood Vitalina. Cross Maxidana went in there, and I never got back to evaluate it, but that was all part of the process of trying to see what new genetic variability we could get. As I said, up till then we only had Tongariro and Muteri as our two willow tree clones.
How'd you go with the stock exclusion? Do you have much cattle on this? Or?
Yeah, what we did, after talking to Stan, it's probably the most depressing day I've ever had in my farming life. Told me the farm was basically crap, the soils were crap, and I said, I don't know. Yeah. But so what we did is we assessed what we were doing. It's a pretty wet farm, summer dry, winter wet. So we basically got rid of all our cows, put 15k of fencing into the hills, so split a lot of these paddocks up. This is the fishing paddock, it's about 40 hectares. You want to go fishing, put the stock in there for 3 days and disappear. So all the rest are kind of anywhere between 4 and 8 hectares, the rest of the farm. And so being on that mind of that, then we got in, so the cows went, just having big heavy feet just didn't work for us. So normally, traditionally with the cattle, we're buying weaners, the weaner beef, steers, we're starting pretty easy. We have a few Frisian bulls come in 100 kilos and take them through to 250, and pretty much sell our cattle store to store. So they go out, we'll take a few through to kill, but the rest will go out around that 450 to 500 kilo mark. Then we'll say, so at any one stage we've never really had a problem with the guards. There's a few fallow deer running around here too, wild ones, and never really had a problem with stock. As long as you don't, and say big cattle, aged cattle, stacking the paddocks up, yeah, you have problems. So we've never really kept the stock out of the paddocks. So yeah, that's what we trade at here. So by the time the cattle get into that 450, 500 kilos, well, they're probably heading to the flats. So they're not out here. So mainly just a lot of younger cattle out here. And breeding ewes, we farm many breeding ewes, roughly, middle of the season, 2,500 to 3,500, depending on how we go, and everything's finished around the place. Yeah, so they don't get too much damage. And you know, the fallow deer, they jump up and down in numbers, and if they obviously get too high, you go get rid of a few and keep them down to a manageable number. They go pretty well. We don't have pigs, don't have goats, don't have any other thing like that. This is the start of the Wainerui catchment group. When we came down that big hill, that's the start on the other side, okay? And these hills are in Tauru, so they flow north. The flats are in Wainerui and they flow south. One thing we have noticed with a lot of the catchment groups, which is pretty obvious at times, but now that you've done a lot of these plantings, especially natives as well, and around the creeks and things, you're actually creating a lot of pest alleys. And they talk about possums coming back. They down on the Wainerui River, and there's a patch down there about, I don't know, wouldn't even be a K. He shot 130 possums the other night. One of the guys just went to have a look, and they haven't had that for a long time. They've trapped about 1,400 possums over the last so many months down there. So that's our next worry with these is the pests coming back. And obviously, say in the Wairarapa, obviously been in the old days it was full of TB, so we've always got rid of pests, always had pest programs, and now they don't have them. Yeah, we're starting to get these numbers coming back, and it'll be interesting if TB does. I hope it doesn't, but if it does rear its head, it'll be a bit of a disaster, I think, on a lot of these plantings and a lot of things like that, especially the native plantings. If you go back down to the flats, you'll see the native plantings, and so we fenced off all the creeks down on the flats, and obviously with deer fencing, because that's where most of the stags are, and they're all down there. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes with pests and things. We've got traps down there. We get a few. We're not getting many at the moment. So a lot of our creeks, you'll see that one through, they've all got a lot of the big gullies have got dams at the bottom of them, the silk traps. Basically, if everything's washing out, that flows down back around to the next valley to Marston and the Tauri. So yeah, that's how we've negotiated some of this ground slipping. You can dig those out. If you have a bad season, bad storm, it all washes in there. Hopefully it stays in there. And they don't flow. They'll flow 5 to 6 months of the year. Other than that, they're dry.
Have you got a land use capability map for the farm, or is that...
Yes, yep. Got all that with the regional council. We have a very good relationship with the regional council, as I said, with trials with Stan from the start, and to Will now, with what we've done.